All right, folks, after so much work and fixing and trying to figure out what was going on with our live streams, we finally figured it out. It's no longer skipping or doing all those things that it was doing. I think we got a perfect connection once again because we've been having a very good connection. We've been having a very good being able to stream very good for the last couple months, and all of a sudden it just started to mess up on us for whatever reason it was. But we were able to get some new equipment, firmware updates, and all of that other good stuff, and I think finally it's perfect, and I don't think we have any issues. We started looking at everything. We ran a bunch of tests on the computers. Everything was perfect. We called up our internet provider and they said, oh, everything is good on their end. So we started looking and probing and figuring it out until we finally got it. That the routers and the direct connections and all that stuff wasn't talking to each other, wasn't doing stuff correctly. So we got rid of that. We put new ones in and boom. Now we're able to live stream effectively. Thank you so much for joining us here at Golden State Times for full coverage of everything that happens in politics. There's a lot of stuff in the news today. I don't know if you guys have seen the Federal Reserve. We're just going to talk a little bit about the news of the day, and then we'll switch over to the Senate Republican press conference that is set to happen. Thank you so much for joining us. I don't know if you guys saw earlier, President Trump was in Washington, D.C. He delivered a speech in Washington, D.C. at the America First Policy Summit. And he said a lot of stuff. He's starting to be more campaign-style speeches than before. Before he would talk about, Biden's doing this bad, Biden's doing that bad, and just talking about what's happening. But now he is starting to do more campaign-style speeches and rallies, I believe, where he's talking about policy, where he's talking about what he is planning to do. But he's still being very careful. He is saying the next Republican president. He keeps using that word. The next Republican president should do this, this, and this. The next Republican president should focus on this and that. So he's still being very careful. He's not saying, oh, I will do this. If I get in office, I will do that. So he's staying very careful from that. Now, there's a lot of red tape and political BS, and that's the reason why he's doing it that way. And two, it's because he hasn't fully and officially said that he is running in 2024. So he has to be very careful. He wants to make sure that he makes an official announcement. I am running for president of the United States, just like when he did back in 2015, going down the escalator and doing his initial presidential speech. Right now, he's just being very careful. He is saying the next Republican president should focus on immigration, should focus on the economy. So if you guys saw that speech, it was very good. He was talking for like an hour and 30 minutes. So it was a very long speech. We are compiling the best of that speech on our channel. We're going to be uploading it later on today. In case you guys missed it, you guys get the best of the best. And we'll be uploading it very soon. So stay tuned for that. Now, we do have a lot of news, starting off with the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve is planning a 1 percentage point increase right now in July. Now, the press conference for that is going to happen on the 29th. I think 29th is Friday, right? Let me make sure, because I have it already on the schedule here, but yes. So Friday, the 29th of July, you will see a 1 percentage point increase. Now they're saying 3/4. That was the initial thing, but no, it's going to be the biggest rate increase in history. They keep breaking records, but not in the good way. So it's going to be the biggest rate increase the country has ever seen. Now, if with this new 1 percentage point increase, we have reached 7% when it comes to interest rates. 7%. Now, if you go and buy a house, and your house, the purchase price is $550,000 at 7% interest rate, you are paying almost, if not $4K a month in rent or mortgage at that point. That is crazy because in order for you to be paying $4,000 for a mortgage, let's say in 2020, 2021, you were supposed to have a $1 million home. So for a $1 million home, yes, you would be paying $4,000 a month in mortgage. But for a $500,000 home, for you to be paying $4,000 in mortgage, that is insanity, pure craziness. Pretty much if you were a first-time home buyer or you were hoping to be a first-time home buyer, right now that's nearly impossible. Nearly impossible because you're not only do you need to have 20% down, your credit score needs to be good, very good. And now you're going to be dealing with a almost 7% interest rate. Let's say if your credit score is not that good, let's say it's in, I don't know, the 600, 650 or whatever, they're definitely going to give you basically what they possibly can. They're not going to be able to fight for you, try to get you a better rate. No. They're going to tell you, here, grab this rate, in 6 months, refinance. But guess what happens? When you try to quote unquote refinance, you're going to be refinancing at 9%. Because that's where we're going. If you do not believe that the interest rate is going to be 10%, if not by the end of the year, by the beginning of next, then I'm sorry. But that's what's going to happen. I'm trying to be nice. I was going to say you're asleep, but no, I'm trying to be nice. But that's what's going to happen. 10% interest rates. That is what's going to happen. That is in the books. That is what they're planning. Because that's where we're going. I'm just letting you guys know. Just like I let you guys know regarding the $4 gas prices, $7 gas prices in big cities. Just like I let you guys know about that, I'm letting you know right now. 10% interest rates. That is what the Federal Reserve wants. That's what the Federal Reserve is going to do. If it doesn't happen by the end of this year, by the end of 2022, it's most definitely going to happen by, let's say, the first 3 months of 2023. 10% interest rates. Now, if you guys don't believe, that's fine. That's okay. It will be 17 by the middle of 2023. I wouldn't doubt it. No, it would. You know what? It depends on inflation. Inflation right now is through the roof. It is unbelievable the number that we have of inflation right now, and the prices of everything is going up. But they want to do a one-to-one, right? They want to, if the inflation is at 10%, that's where interest rates are going to be, and vice versa. So that's what they do. They think that if they match interest rates with inflation, it will go down. that is their mentality. It's so stupid, but that's what it is. And that's why I'm telling you guys, 10% interest rates. And it makes me very sad because a lot of people want to become first-time home buyers. And at the price of the homes right now, averaging $650,000 here in California or more, and in other places the houses used to be $200,000, now they're seeing $400,000 houses, and that's unaffordable for people in other in other states, small cities. Like I know in Texas, there's a lot of places where there's still houses for around $300,000. Here, you can't get anything. You can't get a tent for $300,000. You can't get anything. You can't get a mobile home, a single wide, a double wide. You can't get a trailer, nothing. You can't get absolutely nothing in the state of California for $300,000. But there are some states and some cities in other states that you still can possibly get something for $300,000. But the interest rate, again, at 10%, you're going to be paying for that $300,000 house. You're going to be paying an immense amount in mortgage because of the interest rate. So that's what's happening. I'm just letting you guys know, folks. Like always, I'm just letting you know. Please prepare. 10% interest rate. What else is in the news before we switch over to the Republicans, as they are set to talk about the 2023 agenda? They're hoping that they go back in power, if they're able to take on the Democrats and gets a lot of seats switched over to Republican. Let's see here. All right, so on our website, goldenstatetimes.com, there is a new report. So Merrick Garland, which is the Attorney General, Biden's Attorney General, says that he is open to prosecuting Trump, and he can care less if Trump is going to be the nominee. He will still prosecute him. So that's their plan. Now, I've told many people before that the 3 conservative justices that he put into the Supreme Court are going to be the 3 nails in his 2024 coffin. And what I mean by that is that the Supreme Court is poised to stop Trump from running again. Because this is where we're headed. So Merrick Garland is going to say, I'm going to prosecute Trump. And he's going to attempt it. Trump's going to fight it in court. I'm letting you guys know the playbook. I'm letting you guys know the script. You're not going to hear it anywhere else. You're never going to hear the script from any other news network. Believe me, you're never going to hear it from them. So let me give you guys the rundown before we begin and switch over to the Republican press conference. All right, so this is how it's going to go down. Republicans are going to do absolutely nothing. They're not going to help Trump. They're going to cave. The Republican establishment wants Ron DeSantis. It's that simple. Merrick Garland is going to prosecute Trump regarding January 6th. Okay? So the January 6th committee is going to end the little hearings or whatever. They're going to say, oh, we encourage or our verdict pretty much is that Merrick Garland should prosecute Trump. All right. So they're going to say that to Garland. Garland is going to say, okay, the DOJ is going to prosecute Trump. They're going to go into a court battle, back and forth, blah, 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 back and forth, back and forth. Trump loves to send stuff to the Supreme Court. He believes that if it gets sent to the Supreme Court, he will win. Now, the Supreme Court is going to decide, will Trump be allowed to run again in 2024? And unfortunately, like I said, the 3 Supreme Court justices that he put into the court will be the 3 nails on his coffin. Now, I could be wrong, obviously, but that is the playbook. That is the script. That is what's going to happen. A lot of things can get in the way, and a lot of things can go either way or whatever, and that script can be thrown out and rewritten, and new players can come in, and players can get out, and just like anything. But that's the script. Merrick Garland prosecutes Trump. They fight in court. The Supreme Court steps in. The Supreme Court doesn't allow Trump to run. Ron DeSantis becomes the nominee. That is the script as of right now. As of July 26, 2022, that is the script. That's the reason why you see it on Fox News, that they're running Ron DeSantis ads. They're talking about Ron DeSantis all the time. Trump even said that Fox and Friends was going to the dark side because they are now promoting Ron DeSantis. The Republican establishment wants Ron DeSantis because they know where the DOJ is headed. They know where the Supreme Court is going to stand and how Trump is going to get blocked, whether he likes it or not. It's going to be his nominees, or the people that he put in to the Supreme Court, who is going to shut his ability to run again in 2024 down. So that's going to happen. Now, when that's going to happen? 2023. 2023 is going to be a very pivotal year. But again, that is the script. That is what they're planning. Things can change, and I can be 1000% wrong, and things go back to normal. Nobody can say. I'm not a fortune teller. I have no idea, but that is the playbook that they're playing by, and that's the script that they plan to go forward with. But here we go. Here's the Republicans, folks.
afternoon, everyone. Well, here we are, 2 weeks out from the August recess. In terms of the priorities for the country, I think clearly the most important thing to do before we leave is admitting Sweden and Finland to NATO. That's time sensitive and must actually happen. While we're talking about things overseas, I noticed with interest the flap over the Speaker's travel plans. I think much more important than traveling to Taiwan is making sure we have worked with them to make sure their defenses are adequate to the threat that may come from mainland China. So I think we ought to refocus on what kind of military equipment they have. Is it the right kind? And if not, working with them to make sure they actually have weapons that will deter the Chinese in case there is such an attack.
Well, the administration seems to be wanting to spike the football because gas prices have dropped under $5 a gallon. And if you look at what's happened since the president took office, the price per gallon of gasoline when he took office was $2.38 a gallon. So the idea that somehow it may be under $5 a gallon is some sort of win, I think misses the pain the American people are feeling every time they have to refill their tanks with gasoline. And if you think about the reason for all that, I mean, it's obviously clear when this administration took office, they had a specific idea in mind, and that was to push everybody into EVs and to completely do away with oil and gas and liquid fuel production in this country. And they have effectively, they've had a lot of success doing it. And so I guess what I would suggest to, is that if you think about what will get us out of this environment we're in right now with these chronically high gas prices, and by the way, in agriculture it's very pronounced because diesel is twice what it cost when the president took office. You would think you would start changing your policies, opening up more of these federal lands, approving some of the infrastructure projects and permits to drill and all the things that people like John Barrasso and some of our other colleagues from Alaska talk about. But the other issue I think that you have to address is this pressure that the administration is putting on companies in this country through what they call ESG, environment, sustainability, and governance policies. And they are pressuring companies in this country not to invest in certain sectors of our economy, oil and gas being one. But at the natural extension of that, if you think about it, and I've got small lenders in South Dakota, ag banks, credit unions who are worried that this pressure is going to extend to them not to make loans to agricultural operations. Well, livestock emit methane, right? And so there are these pressures out there the administration through these various environmental regulations are putting on certain sectors of our economy that are very important to our economy when it comes to the cost of energy, electricity, gas, food, things like that. So I introduced a bill this morning which would essentially require regulatory agencies before they move forward with regulations that would raise the price of fuel and gas and food in our economy to consider the impact that those things would have. And if they would, in a period of inflation, add to inflationary pressures and raise the cost of those items, then they would be prevented from issuing those regulations. I think it's high time that we come to grips with what's really causing inflation in this country. And the fact of the matter is that is the lack of a coherent energy policy by this administration, coupled with a clear intent to try and put a lot of these companies out of business, or at least out of business as it pertains to investing in oil and gas production. I think this legislation is something that would provide consumers some relief and prevent these overreaching, heavy-handed government regulations being imposed by agencies that are costing our American families dearly when they fuel up their cars at the pump.
The President continues to threaten a climate crisis and wants to call for a climate emergency. Well, the American people are facing a number of crises right now, and it's not the climate. It's inflation, it's energy costs, it's the border, it's crime in the cities. The White House is also facing crises of their own, crises of competence, crises of credibility. Two-thirds of the American people have told pollsters that they don't believe this administration or this president is focused on the things that they care about. In terms of climate, the New York Times found that only 1% of Americans believe that climate is the #1 concern in the country for them. Only 3% of Democrats find it their prime area of concern. Only 3% of voters under the age of 30 view this as a primary concern. What people are concerned about are paying their bills, being able to afford a full tank of gas, and able to buy a full week's worth of groceries when they go to the store. People are suffering so much under this 40-year high of inflation that the Federal Reserve may this week have to raise interest rates once again. And then the discussion is, are we at a situation where there is a recession? Well, I heard all the happy talk and the denials over the weekend by members of this administration. The bottom line is 2/3 of Americans believe we're in a recession right now. This is an administration that is out of touch with the American people and what's going on in the lives of the American people. A majority of the country is going to face blackouts from an energy shortage this summer. Gasoline is still $2 a gallon higher now than it was the day Joe Biden took office. And for people that have electric vehicles, they're being told in certain locations to not plug in their electric vehicles in a number of hours each day because that's likely to cause a brownout. We have a crisis in this country, and it's not the climate. We have an energy crisis. People know what they want. They want American energy that is reliable, available, and affordable. All three of those things are key. It's not what the administration wants. No, they seem to be happy with high energy costs because of part of their liberal agenda, the liberal world order, as the administration calls it. We have the energy here in the United States. We need to unleash American energy. As Joe Biden continues this misguided obsession with climate, he is hurting American working families and hurting the strength of our nation.
When you talk to people in our states and around the country, I think there's a real sense that this out-of-control economy is about to go over a cliff. The administration's seen lots of warning signs. You know, there were warning signs when they proposed the $1.9 trillion of extra spending about 15 months ago. That wasn't like normal spending. It wasn't 10 years of spending or 5 years of spending. It was spending that happened almost at once. You combine that with extreme energy policies, and the warning signs have just been there over and over again. First, you have people from former Democrat administrations saying this will cause inflation. Not too long after that, you have the highest inflation in 40 years, and now the highest inflation in 41 years at 9.1%. Gross domestic product is down 1.5% in the first quarter of this year. 75% of Americans think the country is on the wrong track. I don't know how many signals you need from the American people that something needs to happen differently. 41% of Americans have less consumer confidence. The consumer confidence number is 41% lower than it was 1 year ago. What they've been doing won't work. More of the same, more tax and spend will make this problem worse, not better. Before we go off the cliff, it's time to pump the brakes.
Yeah, folks, I keep coming back every week hoping that I'll have some good news to share about where our economy is going, where inflation is going, and unfortunately, that's not the reality. So again, today I'll share another story about a rural Iowan who, he's one of those guys that loves to support his local businesses. And because of fuel costs, he has stopped eating at his local restaurant that he loved to go to, and he will not be upgrading his farm equipment this year as he had planned. I mean, these are really big deals in our rural areas. In my home community, Montgomery County, you can look it up on the internet, median income is $51,000, just a little over $51,000 a year for a household. And the fuel costs are still so bad. Yes, the administration is hooting and hollering about bringing down those fuel costs, but they're still exorbitant. And it's hurting our Iowa families. And so this is not a victory. This is still a hardship for the Iowans in my community. And what's the administration's response? It's one that we've heard many times over. And frankly, Iowans are sick and tired of hearing about it. Their solution? Go buy an electric vehicle. Average cost of an EV is $50,000. For my households that make $51,000 a year. That's not a responsible solution. It's not a realistic solution. So instead of proposing electric vehicles for all of our families across the United States that are hurting right now, and instead of proposing that we lean on Iran, an adversary, to produce more oil, why don't we get down to real energy solutions, energy that can be produced right here in the good old US of A? Let's pump more energy. Let's make sure we're helping out our American families, maybe also helping out some of our allies and partners. Why don't we do that? Let's get down to pragmatic solutions and stop living in a liberal fantasy land. Let's not hear any more talk about EVs when we have the solution right in front of us.
Over the weekend when I was home, I talked to families and I talked to businesses, and they're struggling. They're struggling with supply chain problems, baby formula shortages, inflation, just government being a pain in the rear. Almost everybody said they felt like we're in a recession. As you all know, we had negative GDP in the first quarter, and the Biden administration must have some feeling that we're going to have negative GDP in the second quarter, so they've already tried to start saying, oh gosh, 2 quarters in a row of negative GDP is not a recession. So I just pulled it up. So this is, if you just go to Google, which is a big, good Democrat company that helps them typically, a recession, a period of temporary economic decline during which trade and industrial activity are reduced, generally identified by a fall in GDP in 2 consecutive quarters. So we're going to get the GDP numbers this week, and then the Biden administration must be really worried because they're trying to change the definition. So I assume they're going to call Google and see if they can hurry up and get this number, this changed. So when people go on the internet and look this up, it won't say, if you have two successive quarters of negatives, it won't be a recession anymore.
Yeah, Joe.
What do you say to conservatives who say that this CHIPS bill is way too big, it is focused exclusively on one industry, it's too much money for that industry? You voted yes, and vote your vote today. How do you defend it?
Yeah, I think this is about national security and about making sure we have adequate supply here at home of things that are absolutely indispensable. I wish that were inexpensive, but in this particular situation, it's not. Manu?
There are many Republicans in key races across the country, including some Senate races, who continue to parrot the claim for the former president that the 2020 election was rigged or stolen somehow. What is your message to those candidates?
Well, I addressed that issue pretty thoroughly at the time and really don't have anything to add to it. I covered the whole subject, I think, pretty completely on January 6th and again on February 13th. Yeah.
Leader McConnell, are you going to insist on a vote on the NATO resolution before the August recess? And have you had a chance to talk to Schumer yet to set that up and negotiate?
On what?
NATO.
Are you going to insist on a vote on the NATO resolution?
Yeah, look,
before the August
I believe he wants to do that. I mean, I think it's extremely important. As I said, it's the only time-sensitive thing that's really time-sensitive that we have to do between now and August is Sweden and Finland. And I think he thinks that as well.
Leader McConnell,
Yeah.
what is your position on the election reform package released by Senator Collins and Senator Manchin? And do you have an update on your vote, how you would vote on the Respect for Marriage Act that came out?
On the ECA, what I've said consistently is the Electoral Count Act needs fixing. So I've been watching carefully the discussions that have gone on. I think there's steps in the right direction. This needs to be fixed clearly sometime before 24, and it looks like a good step forward. I haven't announced how I'm going to vote yet. And with regard to the second issue, I'm not going to make an observation about that until the issue is actually brought up in the Senate.
Leader McConnell, if
Speaker Pelosi does not go to Taiwan or delays her trip because of threats by Beijing or pressure from this administration not to go, does that not send a signal?
Yeah, it does. Your question implies the answer.
And secondly, on the weapons question, you pointed out that Taiwan needs weapons to defend itself. Will the administration switch its policy to one of selling Taiwan asymmetric defensive weapons, not the kind of offensive weapons they were providing Ukraine? Do you think that's a mistake? Things like the HIMARS.
Yeah, look, I'm not an expert on weapon systems, but I do think Taiwan has a unique challenge. They're an island surrounded by water, pretty obvious where the attacks might be emanating from and what form they might take. What I think we ought to be doing, rather than worrying about whether the speaker does or doesn't go to Taiwan, and I agree with you that if she doesn't go now, she's handed China sort of a victory of sorts, is to work with the Taiwanese to make sure that the weapon systems that they actually have meet the threat that they might actually have to endure. And that requires, I think, a good deal more emphasis on Taiwan defense than we've had in the past.
All right, folks, they didn't even give a heads up or nothing. You just left. All right. Thank you so much for joining us here at Golden State Times for full coverage of the Republican meeting regarding now NATO. They're talking about NATO. That's crazy. There's a bunch of very important topics that goes on, and the first thing that they talk about is random countries and NATO. All right, then. But like they said, the Federal Reserve is planning to raise the interest rate once again as inflation has gone through the roof. Give me 1 second. I think I got some breaking news. Give me 1 second. Okay, never mind. So right now we are covering a bunch of stuff on our website, goldenstatetimes.com. A bunch of companies are laying off people, as you guys probably know by now. It says that almost half of Americans are having difficulty paying their bills because of inflation. And the interest rate hike that's going to happen on the 29th is going to make everything worse. So that's what's going on right now, folks. For more information, it's on our website, goldenstatetimes.com. Again, that's www.goldenstatetimes.com. Let's see here if we have any more breaking news before we sign off. it looks like our live streams are working once again. The whole thing is because of the camera. Again, 5G is what we need. Honestly, 5G is the thing that we need, because when you do live streaming on the field and you're not connected to one of those satellite trucks like all the big, Fox News and CNN, they have gigantic satellite trucks that they connect directly, and obviously the thing is completely full HD and all that other stuff. But when you have a camera guy and you're relying on internet connection, then 5G is what you need. And that's exactly what I was saying on the chat, is that we need 5G, and we need it right now, is because the connection is consistent, it's fast, and it's reliable. But when you don't have 5G and you rely on cell service, to put it, for instance, the connection from the camera goes onto something known as a live view unit. A live view unit runs by cell phone service, but not just one. It runs by 7 different cell phone services ran by 4 different networks. So we have to get Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, or T-Mobile Sprint, and others that are different companies. And all of those have to feed internet connection to that device, which is connected to the camera, which captures the content, sends it over to YouTube, and then we give it to you. So that's basically how it works. And that's the reason why we need 5G. But because we don't need 7 or 10 connections in order to run the internet if you have 5G. You only need probably 4 or probably less. But the connection will be reliable, strong, and consistent. And that's exactly what we need. But right now, it's too extremely expensive to get all of the different parts of it to be able to run it in 5G. It's extremely expensive. So you just need to wait a little bit for the prices to go down, which they will. Once 5G becomes more mainstream, then the prices of those devices that we need will come down, and then pretty much the consistency and reliability of the system will be a lot better to live stream. But that's what's happening. Sometimes it skips like that because of the connection to the internet. We're in a bad area, or there's not enough connection, or whatever. Also, the weather has a lot to do with it. But that's what's going on, folks. Hopefully we can get 5G very soon, and then that way it'll be consistent and good. But yeah, so it looks like that's what we have for right now. More information, like always, on our website, goldenstatetimes.com. Again, that's www.goldenstatetimes.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you join us on the next one. But until then, our live stream is now working correctly, and we're good to go. We'll see you guys tomorrow for full coverage of everything that is going on in politics, breaking news, the White House press briefings, and everything else in between. Thanks so much, folks, and we'll see you soon. Peace.